Okay.
Work. Okay, I'm recording it now.
Yeah, it just switched to the session's being recorded.
Okay, cool. So you can see my Visual Studio window.
Yes.
Okay, so this is TESLAWeb. Now, what we're going to do today is not actually do any code walkthrough. Well, at least not initially. One of the things we're going to do is talk about how to install TESLAWeb 2 on Server 2012 from a fresh vanilla install of Server 2012. Okay.
Okay.
So that'll go through it's going to go through all these steps here through this document. And note the first important note, carefully read through all this document first and understand all the points. And obviously practice doing this on your own bare VM before going to a client site. This is assuming you're going to do a brand new install of TESLAWeb on a server 2012 that hasn't even been set up as a web server at a client site, right? I don't think you'd ever come across that. They would typically have their own web server set up, but we're going to go through the bare nuts and bolts, so you're aware. And I imagine if you were going to install a TESLAWeb at a client site, I'd probably come over at least for the first one, like I did with Jim. Okay, so going through the different steps here, building the TESLAWeb 2 package. So all I've done here is just open up the TESLAWeb MVC project, and I just right-click here. Right-click here and go publish, and then I just select the file publish that's here and go publish. And so what that's going to do is do a release build of TESLAWeb, and it's going to output it here. It'll say at the bottom. It's going to output it into C TESLAWeb 2 published folder. C TESLAWeb 2 published. So this is TESLAWeb minus a Tesla ini, okay? So that's how you publish TESLAWeb to take it to a client site. Then you can zip this up. There's lots of other things you can do, lots of other ways you can publish. There's probably much better ones we can do where we can create a new, where are we here? There's different web publishing things we can do where you can publish directly across the internet to a web server and stuff like that. And a lot of that might actually be better than just doing the standard file publish. But anyway, this is the dirt simple one, which is a good way to start. So these steps here just show you exactly what I did. Okay, so we've got our TESLAWeb. Now we've got to put it onto a web server that doesn't even know it's a web server yet. So here is a vanilla install a server 2012 that I've just booted into. Now the first thing you need to do is run Windows updates, and fortunately, rather than us sit here for a couple of hours watching it install Windows updates, I've done that yesterday. Okay, so we have a freshly updated server 2012, and it's important to install all the updates, all right? Otherwise, I've seen TESLAWeb not work. Okay, so what we're going to do first is add another role and feature to this 2012 server. So it's going to be role based. I can go down here. It's going to be this server. This is the name, it's just a generic install. Now, what we're going to do here, this is the key thing, is we're going to add the web server role. Okay, and it says, oh, okay, these are the features that are added, the management tools, and you go, sure, I'll add those as well. And you go next, and then I'll just go scroll down here so we can see. What we need to add is the ASP.NET version 4.5. Okay, so this is what TESLAWeb is essentially built on. And if we click next there, okay, now we're down here. One of the last things we need to also tick under application development is the .NET Extensibility 4.5. So this is, allows you to do all your .NET 4.5 ASP.NET stuff. Actually, hold on, it's this one here. And if I go add features, it'll add all the other ones we need. So we need to add under application development ASP.NET 4.5. And that's basically it. We go next, tick the box to restart it if necessary, and install. And so that's going to chug away, and it's going to obviously install all the features that we need to run TESLAWeb. Now this may take 10 minutes or so. So again, another thing I've done here is I took a snapshot where I've installed the web server with the IIS. So I'm just going to go straight to that snapshot instead. Save us sitting there watching the feature get installed. Although now, of course, we have to watch the VM get restored. I notice all you guys are all muted. I take it you haven't dropped off the call or anything. And if you do have any questions, please voice up, okay? You guys are still there, eh?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so now we've got a freshly rebooted Server 2012 with IIS installed. So now we need to deploy our package, which is those files we saw in here, okay? So the way we do that is a simple file copy. So we go into this inet pub folder, which was created when we installed the web server role, www.root. Actually, after a fresh install, a good thing to do is make sure everything is working, IIS is working. And to do that, we can just bring up Internet Explorer, user recommended settings, sure. And we just go to http://localhost. And it should bring up the stock standard IIS page. Yep, so great, our web server is actually working. So I'm going to create a new folder in here, and I'm going to call it my TESLAWeb. Obviously, you probably normally call it just TESLAWeb at a client site or whatever client specific name. So we've got our empty folder, and now I'm just going to file copy this across. So this is probably quite familiar to you guys already, because normally you just copy and paste the TESLAWeb to test folder and rename it. And we need administrator, sure. Okay, so we've got our new TESLAWeb in there. Of course, if I go to my TESLAWeb, it ain't going to work. So next step is to fire up IIS. I just created a shortcut to it. Normally you just hit the start and go type in IIS and it should come up. Or not, but anyway, you run IIS and you go in here, and the first thing you want to do is create a new application pool for the TESLAWeb you just created. I'm all for creating an application pool per TESLAWeb. You can certainly put many TESLAWebs into one application pool, but there's minimal overhead on the computer, memory-wise, to have its own application pool. And if a TESLAWeb is in its own application pool and it crashes for whatever reason, maybe you get a JavaScript or some sort of server-side infinite loop in the code or something, it'll crash the application pool and it'll crash all associated TESLAWebs that are in it. So obviously, if every TESLAWeb is in its own, it's safe. So I'm going to create an application pool. I'm just going to name it the same to keep us all sane as the folder I just created in the www.root. So I'm going to call it my TESLAWeb. On some older web servers, you might see this .NET version down to 2 or whatever, but you just want to select 4. It doesn't matter that's not 4.5. You want to select the .NET CLR version 4 and leave that as integrated. I'd never change that. Integrated's fine. And of course, we want to start it immediately. So now we've got our new application pool. So if we browse down here, we'll see the folder that we created before. And you guys probably know this. You right-click, convert to application. Now you want to select the application pool you just created. Okay. Okay. There we go. We've created our TESLAWeb. However, we're still not going to get any action here. We'll get different action, but not good action yet. This is because we're still skipping a whole lot of steps. So we still get this error, right? So anyway, I'll just skip down here where we've created this application pool. Okay, there's on a vanilla install of Server 2012, there's a couple of registry entries we need to make for Tesla. And this is to allow our error messages to appear in the event viewer. So the quickest way we're going to do this is create a registry file. So I'm just going to quickly minimize this, get rid of that. If I create a new text document, I'm just going to paste, this is all it is. So all it's going to do is create a couple of keys in the registry under HK local machine in these two locations, one called login v3 DLL, one called TESLAWeb MVC. So I'll save that, and now I'm just going to bring up view options and hide extensions, untick that. So then I can go, .reg. So now we've got our registry file. So I hit return to run that. Do I want to put that in the registry? Yes. So they have been successfully added to the registry. So that's good. Again, we only ever need to do this once on the web server, a fresh install, okay? Now it's done, it's done. Now, if we bring up this, it's still not going to work. And you might be thinking, why? I mean, it should be. We've got our folder and everything created. There's a little trick here. In our web config, I'm going to open up a notepad. There's a force HTTPS value in here. Now, we haven't set up any certificates and things like that on the web server for it to run under. So we can't browse via HTTPS. So I'm going to change this true to false, save it. Now I'm going to refresh, and cool, we get a different error, but it is progressing, so that's good. Now, there's a couple of other things we can do on a client site. There's a couple of other settings. Enable Google Stats. We can set that to false. And editing enabled. Depending on whether the client wants to edit their weather and load through the web, we can set that to true or false. So I'll close that down. Now, one other thing we're missing in here is our TESLAWeb. So I'm just going to go and bring up my C Tesla programs TESLAWeb. Pop that in there. Let's try refreshing now. Here we go, we've got a TESLAWeb. Now, if you can see this, it means it's working, and any other subsequent problems will be a TESLAWeb database security network issue. Let's see if I can log in here. Okay, so I'm Internet Explorer thing, and there we go. We've got our TESLAWeb up. So that's pretty cool. And so this happens to be hitting on a machine called Tony Office and its SQL Server, etc. So yeah, that's how you install TESLAWeb. Other things we can do at a client site. You see in this TESLAWeb, we are specifying the user ID and password. Let's see, actually this is something I haven't tested yet, but if I take this off and, hold on, I'll bring up localhost my TESLAWeb. Try and log in. It should fail. Okay, it's failed. Okay, now I'm going to go through two other little things here. One, okay, login was unsuccessful. Why? We don't really know. I just entered my username and password correctly. I know why. It's because it didn't connect to the database. But if we go in here and run event viewer. Why is my keyboard not working? Okay, so how the heck am I going to start event viewer here? Anyone know how to start event viewer from a command line? EVE and TVR or something? Okay, let's try this. I don't know why my keyboard's not working in the thing here. Let's see if I do this. Will PowerShell start it for me? Yes, it did. Okay, so we got our event viewer up finally. Now if we go into Windows Logs Application, we can see some errors here from TESLAWeb. So if I click on this most recent error, here's one which says we couldn't find the Tesla ini file. Okay, let's go to this one here. If I clear the log and I go in here and log on again, it should output the messages in here that we can go on. Here we are, here's our errors. So let's have a look at what this says here. Blah blah blah, stuff about database connections. Hey, you know what, this is probably why I couldn't see the event viewer, because this whole screen needs resizing like this. Okay, so we can see we've got a bunch of errors here, and initially this just looks like gobbledygook, but whenever you see this sort of gobbledygook, try and work out what on earth could be going on here. So it says exception caught, login failed for user NT authority anonymous login. So TESLAWeb, or all websites, when they run under IIS, run under an anonymous logon, right? This is for security reasons. No one knows the password for this. That prevents hackers coming in and taking over the machine and getting on the network and stuff like that. But anyway, it's trying to get a connection to the DB connection, a timeout. Okay, so we know we're not getting a connection to the database. That's essentially what that says, right? Connection settings, okay. Workstation ID, then we're going to Tony Office, and we're doing a trusted connection. Yes. So that means we're not using the SQL Server authentication because I banged it out. It's trying to use a trusted connection, which means, you know, Active Directory and all that sort of stuff. So what we can do is run the application pool itself under one of those identities which can access the database. So if I go back in here under the application pool and let's resize this a little bit better. If I select my TESLAWeb and bring up our advanced settings, if we go down here to our identity, you can see it's running under application pool identity. And so that's the lockdown one. But in a client site, when this is all behind their own firewalls on their own intranet and stuff like this, we could change it to like their version of the Tesla network sort of login. So what we can do then is go a custom account and change that to things like, say, net / Tesla network and then the password and stuff like that. Now I'm not sure if this is going to work because this machine isn't joined to the domain, but what the heck. We can always see if it will work. I'd be kind of surprised if it does. Okay, no complaints yet. So okay that. Now, I wonder what happens here. Maybe we need to restart this application pool, or, okay, so it says it stopped here, that's why it's not running. Now let's see, we probably, okay, it started. That's interesting. Let's retry here. No. No, it stopped again. So it's probably because this machine isn't joined to the domain, which is why it can't run under this .NET account. I'm not going to go through the hassle of joining this machine to the domain and stuff like that to prove that it works, because I know it does. But yeah, so that's a way of getting around having to put our user ID, a SQL Server user ID and password in the TESLAWeb. We make the application pool run under one of our own domain accounts. And this may well be what we're going to start doing going forward. Now that Mike has done some excellent work on getting all the different groups under Active Directory going, he will be making some more sort of lockdown or just database access only sort of accounts. And so we could make our application pools run under that account. Probably if we do it right, I guess we would make an application pool per TESLAWeb pool, really, for the ultimate sort of security. I don't know exactly what Mike's planning there, but that's how you'd go about doing that. So, yeah, any questions on getting TESLAWeb up and going?
Nope.
No, so it all sort of makes sense. Like I say, the vast majority of what I just did is because it's a vanilla install of TESLAWeb. If I want to make another new one now, I would copy and paste here. New TESLAWeb, and I'll just go create a new application pool. Bring up the sites here, convert to application, select my new TESLAWeb pool, and then of course one last little thing I've got to do in this TESLAWeb is allow it to access. Okay, it's going to give me an issue with security, so I'll just save it to the desktop and then cut and paste it. New TW should spin up, and it does. So there you go. To create a new one, it's really just a file copy and chucking it in its own application pool, and away you go.
I tried to. I was doing a TESLAWeb install for Seattle, and I can't add a new application pool.
Okay, then it's got to be something to do with security or something. Would you like to show me right now?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so that was you, Alex, wasn't it?
Yes.
Oh. So I'll change presenter to you, and I'll request keyboard control, but I'll obviously let you do it all, Lisa.
Okay.
So just waiting to view your screen.
And there we go.
Connect to a server, yeah, what does that say? And try localhost or US Web Server 1.
Yeah, so I tried my credentials for localhost, well, I didn't try localhost, just US Web Server 1. And it doesn't allow me.
Okay, well, let me try. I don't want to connect to the remote server. Let me try mine if I take over here for a second.
Okay.
So, yeah, okay, US Web SVR 1. I'll do net/Tony as well. See what happens here. No, it is. It is annoying, isn't it? So what happens here if I go, US Web Server 1, sign UART, and I'll
I
just
have my
try.
password saved.
Okay.
You,
Hold on a sec. If I just get the IP address, ping US Web SVR1. Okay, so that's 192.168.49.7. So if I try it via IP address, it might not. Oh no, it might go because it's in your tools options, isn't it? Connections. Oh no, it's got none. Okay, so if I just type in, what did I say it was? 192.168.49.7. Let's see if it. I'm going to log in as me now. So, yeah, so it's definitely some sort of security issue.
I talked to Mike about it, and I think just briefly looked at it, but he didn't know how to fix that.
Edit local users and groups. Domain admins. What's the best way? Because you won't be a domain admin. Okay, so if I go in here and I add you, directly here, this is not the best way to do it. We want to undo this and use groups only. But if I try, actually, let's just see if I can bring up both of us logged in at the same time. There we are. So yep. It's because it was a security issue.
Okay.
Cool. So do you want to? Do you need to make another application pool and stuff right now? Do you want to do it while I'm here?
No, Mike did it for me on his account, okay. So it's all set up.
Okay. So the reason what I've done then is I added you into the administrator group here. Okay. You're obviously not a domain admin. So I'm just going to take a quick snapshot and I'll just send it straight to Mike. I'll send that later. Okay, but I'll leave you in there for now, and then okay. I'll just sign out myself here. I mean, ideally, we want to have our own user ID -admin accounts, so then if we do want to log in as administrators, we have to be very specific about it. This will come, slowly as Mike works through getting the Active Directory groups and all that set up.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so that's how we do TESLAWeb, but I mean, that's from the ground up, whereas you're just a folder copy of TESLAWeb 2 test, application pool, and away you go. Like I say, one of the best things you can do is look in that event viewer. And if I bring up the event viewer now, there's a couple of other little things we can do here. Because obviously it can be quite massive. So if we go into the Windows log application, so we're loading it up, it'll be huge. So here we can see a hell of a lot of stuff from SQL Server and all the rest of it in here, which is interesting. In fact, this is getting, something's going on here. I mean, look at all these. There's even a client reader. But you can go use filter. Let's see, is it TESLAWeb? we go down and find a TESLAWeb here, we can bring up event IDs and stuff like that. Oh, sorry, this is on the database server. No bloody wonder. For Pete's sake. I was thinking, why are there no TESLAWeb entries here? What's going on? Ah. Okay, Windows log, application. Okay. Just having a quick look here for nothing's going too crazy, which is good. Sometimes I've seen a whole lot of errors in here, and it'll be about mistakes in the INI file and stuff like that. If you see those sorts of errors, fix them, because quite often they're self-explanatory. But yeah, if we filter and we change, where is it? If we just bring up our errors for, where are we here? TESLAWeb. Let's see what errors we've been having recently. So the last one was today, 4:15, so an hour ago. This is interesting. Someone had a change password error. It's good to see we're not having massive strings of errors and things like this. Here we are. So Ginny has obviously encountered some issues here with just date selection and stuff like that. But this is your friend, right? When things go wrong, you go into the event viewer, you bring up your source of TESLAWeb. Well, you don't even need to filter your source. One of the best things you can do is just clear the application log, reproduce the error, and then just look in here and see what is going on. Because TESLAWeb doesn't have ready access to, say, see Tesla programs log file, it relies on pumping stuff out to the event viewer instead, okay? So if something goes wrong, bring up the event viewer and try and make sense of what's going on. Even if it looks like gobbledygook, like a big list of blah like this, read it because quite often it'll help you. I mean, this does sort of say, Ginny, okay, there's exception, stop date must be after start date. Okay, well, that kind of makes sense, right? And, a lot of those database connection issues, it's bound to be something like that. It'll be some sort of security issue or misconfiguration of the test that'll bring you down almost every time. Okay. Cool. So any other sort of questions on that?
None for me.
No. Well, let's see. We've only got 15 minutes left, but I don't want to inundate you guys with too much, and I don't think we have enough time to do anything else extra. Next week, what I was going to do is open up TESLAWeb to test that, or the TESLAWeb project, and go into the TESLAWeb 2 test and just go through a bit of that. I did send out an email on that, which hopefully made sense. But I'll go over that again, and I'll probably dive into a few of the different things that are inside TESLAWeb just to make you guys more aware of what's sort of in there. I mean, the big killer thing is the DB access, but you'll notice there's a whole lot of other utility classes in there as well. Just briefly going over it while we do have a few more minutes here.
And are you going to go over the C++ to C# conversion with us during one of these?
In what way? In what way do you want me to?
Well, I mean, Arena and I have very limited knowledge of C++.
Yes.
Yeah, we have no knowledge of C++ to be.
Okay. You've seen C++ code though, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I've got open.
It's essentially, it's very, very similar to C# code. And in fact, if I am converting code, I'll basically start by just copying and pasting some of the C++ and then change stuff like C strings to string, for example. I mean, like your for loops and all that sort of stuff, the syntax is essentially identical. So if you know C Sharp, you should be able to read C++.
I don't know. It looks like Chinese to me, to be honest with you.
Okay, can you bring up a project right now, one that you're going to convert? And I have no worries going over, the C++ with you.
You're still on my machine. If you go to Visual Studio 2008 at the bottom there.
You do it.
Okay. So it's user settings.
I think the most confusing are the header files. I mean, is the code broken up between two sets of files, the .cpp and the .h? Like, what do they do?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So the CPP and .h. So in C Sharp, everything's just in a CS file, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in C++, it's broken. Your class is essentially broken into two files. So, for example, if you went into a C Sharp block of code, actually, do you have a C Sharp app open as well there?
No.
Okay, let me take the screen back again. Change it back to me. Okay, show my screen. Okay, so I'll just see my screen now.
Yes.
Okay, so I've got one Visual Studio up here, and let me bring up another Visual Studio. What's one of the apps you guys are converting?
I mean, Tesla Tester, Tesla the Uni Player, maybe.
Okay,
Okay.
Okay, actually, what I'll do is I'll actually load up the I'll say any player. Okay, so I'm going to open up the any player in Visual Studio from source 3.1 and do it in the Visual Studio 2008 as well, because it should build and actually work in there. So the old source control's gone, so we can permanently remove that. So if we have a look, if I expand this out, we get a source and header files here. Okay, so if I take a look at, say, where are we? Where's something here? So you've got a class here. This is class, right? And it's just like a C# class. You've got your constructor here. C++ has a destructor, which you don't in C# because of garbage collection. And then down here, we've just got a bunch of member variables, right? Sorry, here's some member variables, for example. So instead of C string, this is just a string, like string output file, string tag, and tag type here. And then we've got some methods here. So they're declared in this header. And if I bring up a C# file here, let me bring up something a bit simpler like clog. If I right click in here and I go outlining collapse to definitions, this is essentially your .h file. Okay? So your .h file, if I go back here again, it just says my class has these member variables and these methods, right? And if I collapse my C# class right down, all it's saying is like, here's my class, here's my member variables, and here's my methods. So that's the correlation there. All we've done in C++ is not combine the definitions of things with the code, whereas in C# we've done both. Okay, so we don't have a .h in C++, they're just merged together. So if I then go, so here's my .h file for anyplayer.h. If I do anyplayer dialog.cpp, for example, if I go here, there's a method defined here called output result to file. And so if I look in here, This is a method calling that. Here we are. Here's the definition for that method. And what this is saying is that this method belongs to this class, see any player dialog. And if I go back to the .h file, see any player dialog, output result file, that is where it's defined. So if I go back, if I don't have this line here, or I don't have this in here, it won't compile. The compiler will complain. So that's the difference. C++ has the definitions and the code split out from each other in two files, where C# it's all together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes. Sort of.
Yeah, cool. Now, having a look at the C++, yes, you're right. It is gobbledygook, especially because C++ is essentially a hell of a lot more bloated than C# to do the same things. So here's our constructor. Okay, so what this constructor is doing here is just setting these member variables to empty strings, these values to 0. A lot of this, you just simply ignore it. I mean, you don't have a destructor, you can ignore that. This do data exchange stuff. This is all to do with what happens when a person clicks on a button in the dialog. It's binding these IDs, if you like. This is stuff you just won't have in your C#. If I bring up, for example, in any player, the dialog itself, eventually it should come up. And I bring up properties for this refresh button. This is its ID, IDC_refresh button. Okay. Now, if I go back into the C++ code and search for that, there's this on button clicked, where the ID equals this. Then you want to call this method that belongs to this class. Okay. So the class is the see any player dialog, which is what we're in right now. And the on button click refresh button is the method. So if I now search for that method and go down here, this is the code that's called when you click that refresh button. Okay? And then it's going to call standard sort of methods that are going to make a lot more sense to you. Update data. So if we go to that method, here's the press F12. This goes to the header, which is the definition. Update data. Actually, that's again, this is stuff you wouldn't have in your C#. Update data is an MFC command which says update all my member variables so that they correspond to what the user might have set in the form. So I might have different member variables for every one of these, like you would in C#, but you have to call update data to say refresh the variables to make sure they map what the user's done. Okay, it's dumb, right? Again, it's bloated. It's bloated compared to C#. But then, so once we refresh all our variables, call this refresh dialog method. So if I go to refresh dialog, now this is going to be closer to what you would do in your C# itself. Okay. So what's it doing here? We've got a member variable called, it's a string called result. And what this is doing here, it's building up this m_tag name. I imagine this maps to what the text that's in here. Okay. This m_tag name will be bound to that. And so we construct our tags. So we put on a square bracket and then a quote. It's escaped. Then we do a whole lot of crap we wouldn't do in C#, which is we delete these member variables, which is db interaction, db access, and a pointer to our ini file. We say if our TESLAWeb file name is blank, and that will be what this text box here equals, then we create a new read TESLAWeb object. Now this, if we copied and pasted this code, we can replace all these different things with the objects, the C# version of these objects. For example, instead of C read TESLAWeb in our TESLAWeb, we've got C read TESLAWeb. So, yep, okay, we would create an instance of this class, passing in our log object, pass, if we don't have a file name, we'll read using a default file name. If we do, we'll construct it all by passing in the file name to use and a couple of other parameters, whatever the hell they are. Then we create our login object, and again we have in our login v3, this is our login object. So the login is one of the few things that are outside TESLAWeb, mainly because it has some forms. So we create an instance of our Tesla login object, and then we create an instance of our DB access here using this DB create. What's interesting is I'm pretty sure I sent you code last week where you can create your DB access just by calling a single method on your login object. So that's probably the way to go. And then what do we do here? We TESLAWeb file name. We populate that from the TESLAWeb object. So that means that would update. We reset the content of the tag name control. So that's probably this one here. That's probably just a case of saying tag name control.text equals blank string or something like that. And then this vector is just like a list. So it says, okay, let's define a list of strings here, and then we'll ask our ini object to get all the tags that are in the TESLAWeb file. So this would be equivalent of, there's probably in your, if we go back to the C# code and we go into C read TESLAWeb, there's probably a get all tags method, hopefully. Yep, so there is. So you would just call the corresponding C# version get all tags. In C# with pointer notation, instead of a full stop, it's an arrow. It can be a full stop like this. This is all the difference between in C#. In C++, you can have instances of things or pointers to things. All you need to know is it's an object and you're calling methods. So be it a full stop or an arrow, all it's doing is calling a method on the class, right? So in your TESLAWeb class, it's saying get all the tags. Now, this is just a simple for loop. So it's going to start at 0 and it's going to go through loop over the number of objects that we got back from the read TESLAWeb object here. It's going to create a string saying this is my current tag. It's going to strip the square brackets off it, and we're going to add it. Also strip the quotes off it, and we're just going to add it to the tag name control, which will be this one here. So this is going to build up with a huge list of all the tags that are in the TESLAWeb. And by tag, I mean everything that starts with a square bracket, like you'll see data source, server info, Tesla optimized, daily power load, for example, will appear listed in here. And then again, it calls this MSC specific thing update data, and I pass in false, which means don't update my member variables, use my member variables to update the form. Okay? Again, extra guff you'd never have in a nice, lovely C# world. So, yeah, that's kind of an example of how you'd translate it. I mean, if you were going to do a one-for-one translation of exactly what's in C++ to what's in C#, I think that would actually be quite a painful way of doing it. If I was you, I would create something from fresh. It may not even look, like this. You may have a better design for it, for example, and then try and code it up yourself to try and replicate the functionality. What you can do, of course, is if you get a bit stuck, go to the C++ code and try and understand what's going on here of how it's done it. Like I say, this refresh dialog, what it's doing is it's creating a TESLAWeb object. It's asking for all the tags out of the TESLAWeb, and then it's just blasting them all into a pull down. So that's all this method is doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Tony, do you
Yes.
think you can give us a 101 on WPF at some point?
Honestly, I haven't even created many apps in WPF at all. I would,
Oh, really?
yeah, I would recommend doing some, yeah, tutorials online, or working on it together with you guys in the office. I know I'm pretty, yeah. I mean, I have dabbled with a bit of WPF, but not enough to really start teaching it. And so this will be something. This is like a big throw you in the deep end, watch you sink and swim sort of thing. Yeah, and
I
if
think I'm thinking
if
already.
yeah, no, and don't be worried about feeling overwhelmed and thinking, shit, this simple sort of project of converting this relatively simple looking thing this might take me a couple of months to do. This is because I've got to learn WPF. I've got to learn what's in the test already and all this. Feel overwhelmed, but don't be worried about it. We're not expecting you to convert this in a day or two, right? In a few years from now, yeah, you will be able to convert an app like this in a couple of days. But right now, it's probably going to take you a couple of months. And and the whole reason of asking you to do this is because once you've finally been able to do it, you're just going to know so much, right?
So it's more of a learning
It's
exercise.
a total learning exercise. Exactly. Jim and I divvied up all these apps. None of them are time critical. None of them really are system critical. We're not giving you something that's, if you don't do it right and it doesn't work, a client's going to be down, right? So we're kind of wanting you to do this and as stress-free as you can, with no time pressure, so you can take the time to learn. And you're going to be learning a hell of a lot, okay, just to do this one app. And that's cool. I mean, that's what this is all about, There's going to be lots of backwards and forwards between you guys in the office, between me, and perhaps even with people like Alex in the UK office. You might have some better time crossovers there. Alex will be an excellent resource for you guys.
Does Alex know C++?
Um, I'm not
I don't think he does.
sure. I think he may do.
Actually, yeah, James told me that he doesn't. He does not know.
Yeah, but like I say, these C++ apps, it might take you 15 minutes just to find the relevant method that corresponds to what you're doing. Like, this refresh dialog method, it kind of explains itself. On button clicked refresh, that explains itself. On button clicked lookup. So you might be thinking, okay, when I select my tag and type in my parameter and click lookup, what is the C++ code doing? Well, on the lookup, it's what are we doing? It's getting the current selection from this parameter one. It's loosely named parameter control that will relate to this parameter control box here. Instead of just saying, give me the text out of it, you've got to go through all this extra crap in C++. But we get the current ID, and then what are we doing? We're looking up all the attributes after the tag. And so this is asking our any object, test or any object, to get all the attributes after the tag. And by attributes, I mean, this part. Okay, attributes and values, parameter values. And then what's it doing? It's looping over all of them and pumping it out to the result, which will be here. So what it's doing is when you select a parameter under the, once we select a tag name and select a parameter and click lookup, it's going to go in here, and there's probably only going to be one matching parameter, but some tags there'll be multiple. For example, under the models section here, we've got a couple called the same. So if we ask for give me the model tag under the models, give me the model parameter under the models tag, it's going to bring back two things, right? And all it's going to do then is pump out both of them under here. So it does look like gobbledygook, but yeah, if you look at it hard enough and long enough and squint your eyes enough and have enough beers in you, you can probably work out what kind of a hint of what it's doing. And so
we might have to keep the beer budget in that case.
Yeah. So just
Otherwise,
use the C++ as a loose guide.
mhm.
If I'm stuck here. What is it doing here? I'll try and understand this. You're certainly not going to translate it one line for code for one line of code, right? Your C# stuff is likely to be half the size or less than what's in here, because C# and the .NET framework is just so much better to code in than C++. There's so much extra crap you have to do. So use the C++ code as a gentle, frustrating, and half encrypted guide to help you out if necessary. But if you get
Yeah.
stuck, flick an email off and say, "Hey, I'm stuck here. What can I do?" And of course, we'll leap to your aid.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a case of learn the basics. Spend the next few weeks just learning how to create simple applications, and then just start by doing a couple of little things. Like start by say just creating my log object and my retest object, like I sent in that sample code last week, and then just add a couple of buttons and pull downs and see if you can get some basic stuff going. And then scrap it, start again, scrap it, start again. Iterate different versions of your app. Start slow and sort of build up. And more than happy to review what you've been doing and things like that and help you out as you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But like I say,
And that no, we're all signing up for computer science classes, so.
Yeah, but I mean, it will feel overwhelming at the moment. But make a list and just start ticking little things off,
Okay.
and have fun, because it will be fun learning the new things. But yeah, and it's kind of cool that you've got a C++ app there, if only so you can see what the dialogue looks like, and you can play with the program to say, oh yeah, this is what it does, sort of thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, but keep in mind that what's in the TESLAWeb class, there's a hell of a lot of stuff in here. But it's kind of, well, it's been done before. So for a lot of the things, you won't have to create a new class to connect to a Tesla database, because it's been created. You got the DB access. You won't have to create new code to read the Tesla ini, because obviously you got this read Tesla ini object. Basic stuff like that. If you think you're starting to reinvent a wheel that should have already been done, ask, and then I'm likely to be able to say, oh no, this is where we can look. This is where you'd go to do this. If you need to time shift data or something like that, in the data table utils or date time utils, there'll be stuff in here to do that for you. Okay. So a lot
Okay.
of it's going to be learning what code's already written. A lot of it's going to be writing your own code for me to only say, yeah, you just want to call this method instead. But that's fine too, because even writing your own code to do something that's already been done is going to teach you a lot anyway. That'll probably happen, and don't worry about it. But if we find that happening, we will want to compare what you've written with what we've written, and you might even have done it a better way, and we could replace things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, next week I'm going to go through the TESLAWeb project, the TESLALib project and the TESLALib test project, especially this unit test one. And this is missing a lot really, but it's a good start. It covers a lot of core things, mainly the DB access. But as you make classes, create a corresponding test class in here and add tests. And that's going to give you guys a huge amount of confidence, because when you start creating some code and you say, okay, this is quite often one of the best ways to code is to start with your tests, because you want to say, look, if I'm going to call, what's the method in here? If I bring up something like date time, if I've got something like here, convert local to UTC. So this is converting a date time to UTC, right? So I might start by I might say, look, I'm going to pass my method a date time object, and I'm going to say, what GMT offset and country code that date time is in, and what I want to get back is the UTC version of it. So I might code this up saying, yeah, this is exactly what I expect to get back and things like that, and then I'll write the code behind it. And so when I run my test, it should just work straight away. But I'll go through how that works in the next code review and how we could write our code starting from tests, which is kind of a nice design philosophy. In the real world, this probably won't happen, but I really want to encourage you guys to write tests. And in fact, when you're going through TESLAWeb and understanding what's in there, it'd be kind of cool to say, is there a test? So I can white box trace through the code. Oh, there's not. Okay, I might actually create a test to do this and spend a day. It eventually won't take you a day. It'll eventually just take you an hour. But start off by spending a day by working out how to create my own tests and doing a few boundaries and a few middle of the road things and tracing through the code, and then all of a sudden you understand what's going on in TESLAWeb itself inside the methods, and you might even catch some bugs. There's bound to be bugs out there. But anyway, I've talked your ears off enough. It's obviously getting late for you guys. But yeah, any other sort of questions?
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
No worries. But like I say, it's probably all quite overwhelming, but we're not expecting miracles in a couple of days. Okay, I'm expecting stuff in a couple of months. So don't worry about that. Spend some time to learn how to create these applications from scratch, from online tutorials or whatever. If there is some training you can go to or whatever, you've got $500 you can spend a year on training courses, right? For a lot of this, it's all going to be a whole lot of free stuff online to teach you how to create, these basic WPF apps. But if there's a real kick-ass one that costs a few $100 to do, go to Mike and say, hey, I want to spend some of my training budget on this or whatever.
Is that a part of the tuition budget or is it separate?
Ask Mike whatever it's classified under. All I know is that there's some budget if you need it.
I'm pretty sure I used that mine already.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, if you need it, you need it, right? There's bound to be a hell of a lot of Microsoft free stuff on how to create stuff from the ground up in this regards, and spend a couple of weeks or more just learning that. Okay.
Alrighty.
Yeah. But yeah, keep the questions coming. Let's start using this
Microsoft Teams.
I think it could be very cool. Create a group here for your own app, I guess. Like we've got a model runner 2 here, we've got a TESLAWeb here. Create one for your own one. And I think you just put like the @ symbol, I can do @ here, @ arena, and then type my message, and then you should get an alert. Yeah, but let's start using this because I think it could be very cool. I've read a couple of little reviews and they seem to be glowing about it. So yeah, let's start using it. I think it could be quite good to keep a good record in here of all the questions and things like that. It'd be a great reference tool. Okay, well, enjoy your evenings then, and I'll leave you to it. And I'll look forward to seeing things pop up in here.
Yep. Alrighty. Microsoft Teams, I'll see you next week.
Yeah,
Thanks, Tony.
Sounds good. But like I say, don't wait till next week to ask me questions. Just keep them coming.
Oh, we won't, trust me.
Yeah, that's all cool. Right? That's what I fully expect. Okay, then. We'll see you guys later.
Bye-bye.
Cool.
Goodbye.
Bye.